Dennison Bertram, welcome to Mint. How you doing, man?
What's up, man? I am doing fine. I'm alive, busy, crazy,
Nice.
tons of stuff going on. I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
Feeling
Thanks
good.
for thanks for having me.
You got it, man. I'm excited to have you on. Tally is legit as it gets. You guys are building some really cool products, empowering DAOs, and DAOs are the hot topic of the day, right? They've been the hot topic the last few months. A lot of people going full time in DAOs, a lot of people going DAO only. Like, there's a lot of excitement, a lot of energy. So perfect timing with this episode. So let's just jump right in. Who are
Sure.
you? What were you doing before crypto? And like, what are you doing now?
There is no before crypto. No, just kidding. So my name is Dennison Bertram. I'm CEO and co-founder of Tally, superhero, right? If you want to join a DAO,
Represent.
representing. And we are a DAO tooling and dashboard provider. Basically, our goal is to make on-chain governance work. We believe that governance is critical to the future. DAOs are critical to the future, but there's a lot of tooling necessary to make that work. So we are really building a lot of this tooling, trying to give insight into communities, help people participate, drive participation, help people build functional DAOs, sort of all that good stuff, really like steeped in the DAO. I haven't always been in DAOs, although I have kind of always been in crypto. I entered the space in 2011, 2012, actually ran one of the first Bitcoin exchanges in the Czech Republic in 2012, then did a whole sort of slew of things in the sort of like early post Satoshi crypto days. But the biggest thing was before full time, I was a fashion photographer for a very long time and had a creative technology company that really worked on helping fashion brands be more modern and sort of, in some cases, even actually try and sell them on blockchain for like supply chain solutions. Although, up until the recent history, you sort of mentioned that like DAOs are like the hot thing. I think crypto's a hot thing now. It's kind of awesome to have been in the space long enough to sort of recognize it's only been the past couple of years that we weren't the crazies, right? Like the first, almost all of crypto history were just crazies. And then one day suddenly we weren't crazy anymore, right? Like Snoop Dogg is buying NFTs, and you just think, wow, all right, like that happened, right? Like, so suddenly you go from a world where everything is crazy that you're doing, everything's magical internet money, magical internet art, selling JPEGs, and then all of a sudden it's like the future.
What led that transition of it no longer being the weird kids club to the cool kids club?
Yeah, so I think about this a lot, and my sort of philosophy around it, or like the way I like to think about it is, and I talk about this a lot. There was an article a long time ago that said, you don't understand Bitcoin because you think money is real. And that is, I think, probably the best way to sort of like wrap your head around crypto from the beginning, anyway. That money is kind of the only human concept that's not native to the internet, right? Like, I can send you a letter and transmit my love for you. Dear Adam, how I love you and miss you. Signed, yours forever, Tally. Right? You'll get the email. You'll feel loved, right? Like, I've sent love to you in an email, right? I can't send you an email. Certainly in 2007, I can't send you an email that says, "Hey Adam, here's $1."
Yeah.
Right? So money is like the only human concept that really can't be transmitted natively on the internet, and machines can't natively transact between one another. So we have this sort of like history of primitives that was necessary. In the very beginning, it was magic internet money, right? Like Bitcoin was magic internet money. And when Bitcoin was created, it was quite literally magic internet money, right? Like years ago, I think The Economist, they're late to the game, but they did a cover about Bitcoin and Ethereum and
Yeah.
crypto. It's like a
Yeah.
unicorn. It's just
Yeah.
like, like magic internet money. But this primitive is a concept, right? So the first thing that we had to do, and it took years to do, was to make magic internet money a concept that was real. We had to make it real, right? So once magic internet money was a real idea, right, then you can start building things on magic internet money, right? You can build magic internet banks, right? Like the only thing crazier in 2017 than magic internet money is magic internet banks, right? Like people can kind of get their head around like monopoly money. People can't really get their head around you going to build a bank that trades in monopoly money, right?
Yeah.
Like that's just like, okay, that's really stupid, right? If you were to then tell them that they could go take their magic, they could go take their monopoly money, put it in Adam's Monopoly Bank, and earn monopoly APY interest on it, at some point it's just like stupid, right?
But if everybody accepts that monopoly money, then we're golden.
Well, that's the thing, right? So first we have to make magic internet money like a primitive that's real, right? Once that's real in people's heads, then you can build magic internet banks, right? And Maker is a really great example of this, right? Like the idea that you could have a dollar denominated monopoly money is stupid until you have real monopoly money, right? And then suddenly, like, oh, building a bank on top of monopoly money is not so crazy anymore, right? But even when we first had Bitcoin, and once we started to sort of accept that primitive as being real, the Magic Internet Bank was still a leap too far, and people had to build that, and that had to work, right? So you have folks like Maker, now you have Magic Internet Banks. Well, now that you have Magic Internet Banks, you can build Magic Internet Finance, right? You can build a Magic Internet financial system, right? Like if you said millions of people around the world are going to take monopoly money and like quit their jobs to go build monopoly money farms and monopoly money this, and it would just been super, super ludicrous, right? Like then you're just like in the absurdist land. But
Yeah.
once Magic Internet Banks is real, Magic Internet financial system is real, right? So we had to build these primitives and make these things real in our minds as concepts. And once you got to that point, then we really can start solidifying Magic Internet organizations, right? And Magic Internet organizations actually start earlier, right? And they probably, you could argue, are around in some shape and form since probably the beginning of the internet, depending on how you define like what a DAO is. But really, what sort of happened, in 2017, you sort of started to see folks really saying like, no, we can build this magic internet organizational tool, this magic internet like decentralized autonomous organization. But it was a little bit early, right? Some people were trying it, some people were on it, right? But
Right.
it wasn't really high throughput, and there wasn't that much yet to really govern because it still wasn't real in people's minds, right? Even today, folks really have trouble on Twitter. Some days they love DAOs, some days they hate DAOs, some days they
Yeah.
love governance, some days they hate governance, right? They're like, governance minimization, right? It's sort of like, magic internet money and minimization, right? It's sort of like this concept is kind of like a bridge too far,
Yeah.
right? But now it's becoming real, and we see it becoming real. And like the steps to like getting these places get shorter and shorter and shorter, right? Like convincing you of DeFi was a lot easier than convincing you of Bitcoin, right? So these primitives, the time that it becomes real, like it gets shorter and shorter and shorter.
Yeah.
And now we're kind of at the phase of magic internet organizations, really, right? That's why it's kind of the moment, because suddenly we have a really big magic internet financial system running, right? Like DeFi, it's a huge machine. There's tons of legal liability, there's tons of money, there's tons of individuals, there's tons of stakeholders. How are we going to balance all these things, right? And you kind of need DAOs to manage all these things. But at the same time, you have something else going on, which is somewhere on like the side path of history. People go, magic internet money, well, what do I do with that? And they're like, well, I guess I'll buy JPEGs, which is again the day before the first
Right.
JPEG was sold, the dumbest shit you ever heard of, right? Like, why the
Yeah.
hell would you buy a JPEG, right? I'll just go on Tumblr and right click it. But earlier in the NFT craze, I'm gonna say like a few months back, you saw a lot of people being like, "Oh, I'm so funny. I'll just right click and save your JPEG on Twitter." It was like a meme. Yeah, like you don't really hear that anymore, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not that it's just not funny anymore, but it's also like, yeah, you buy JPEGs, and
Yeah.
even the people who mocked it kind of have to accept the fact that that's what we do now, right?
Yeah.
So you have this other primitive that's become real, and sort of what you see now, of course, is you see the people who create JPEGs and people who are, James from Cloudland put this really well at MCon. Even these JPEG groups are a kind of DAO, right? Like suddenly you see Magic Internet organizations for everything, right? You got Opolis that's doing like healthcare for freelancers. You got the Graph, which is doing data for blockchains. You got Nexus Mutual that's doing insurance for DeFi and maybe more stuff, right? So suddenly, oh, Magic Internet organization, DAOs, this is not just real, but it's necessary.
Yeah.
And in my own personal opinion, and in sort of like the grand scheme and goal of like Tally, the end state is Magic Internet Society, right? Which of course sounds ludicrous, right? Like this is the dumbest thing ever. But if probably to you and me, it doesn't seem so crazy anymore because we get it, right? Like, yes, it's going to be hard. Getting there is going to be long. It's going to be fraught with difficulties. But the leap to accepting Bitcoin was a million times bigger than the leap to accepting this will be all things.
A million times bigger and like 10 million times harder,
Yeah,
right?
exactly,
And as people adopt Bitcoin, then they transition into DeFi. And then you were talking about how it was easier to convince them about DeFi. And now it's becoming easier to convince them about NFTs. As skeptical as people are about these digital JPEGs, right? These digital images, these MP4, MP3 files, they're buying into them. And when I was like explaining to more normies, like, why is this craze happening? Like, value is subjective, right?
Yes.
One man's trash is another man's treasure, and a lot of people see value in different things. And back to like this magic internet concept. Now we're diving into like magic internet governance, right? And this is something that you brought up in the beginning as you were introducing yourself. You're like, governance is critical to the future. And I want to reverse that on you. Why is governance critical to the future?
Yeah, because governance represents participation by the users, right? And this can look like a lot of different things, right? From a really practical point of view, governance is critical from the future because we today do not actually know exactly what the future looks like, but we know that we need tools to allow us to adapt to whatever that future is, right? Folks like to talk about governance minimization. That's great, but you don't know what the future looks like, right? Like, imagine if we had created a I don't know, some sort of protocol standard 3 years ago. Would we still be using it? Even Solidity is different today, right? So from the sort of like base case, I think the most convincing reason why we need governance when it comes to the idea of like constructing like things like protocols is we don't know what the future looks like, and we need to leave the optionality to be able to adapt to what that future may or may not be.
Yeah.
From the community side of it, it's effectively, would you rather join something you're a part of or join something that
Exactly.
you just
leave it at that.
Exactly.
Just join something you're a part of.
Exactly.
But the way you become a part of it is by buying into it, right? Or by allocating it or earning it, right? So there's different ways, but okay, continue.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you don't actually even need to buy into it, right? Like, if you think about it, Ethereum is a kind of DAO, right? It's decentralized, it's autonomous. Like, I don't do anything and it keeps going. Other people who do important things, if they stopped, Ethereum would keep going. And it's kind of an organization, right? Like, we believe in Ethereum. We try and get it when it's cheap, and hopefully we do something useful when it's expensive. We cry together when like gas is expensive. We send out little tweets when we're like, "Oh shit, gas is cheap. Deploy your contract," right? Like, we are an organization. It is decentralized. It is more or less autonomous, right? So how did we get into it? Yeah, I guess you could argue that we bought ETH, or maybe we earned it or something like that. But maybe that doesn't have to be a prerequisite, right? Like, you could gain membership to organization by virtue of who knows, like, maybe you own a punk and somebody else creates an organization just for punk holders,
right?
I guess you bought the punk. I don't know, like, membership I don't think needs to be a buy-in thing, but it certainly could be. I mean, that's certainly the easiest way to get into something, is to buy a membership.
One of the like most exciting DAOs for me right now are Friends with Benefits, Forefront, M Club, and Seed Club in general, and a lot more of these creator DAOs that are forming by these individual talented people that just are scattered online that are good with graphic design, creating really cool pieces of art and
Yeah.
rallying their collectors into more like, an intimate type of circle that they're building.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're seeing, I believe we're going to increasingly see creators create their own creator DAOs, right? There was a lot of create
Yes.
in one sentence, but
Yeah.
creators will be forming their creator DAOs. They can call
Sure.
them fan clubs, they can call them online organizations, group chats, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
How far away are we from seeing that? Right now, we saw that like with DeFi, like everybody's like forming DAOs with DeFi. It's already been a thing, right? We're seeing that more and more with NFT collector groups like Fingerprint or Pleaser DAO, et cetera. All these like investment collector groups. Like, when are creators going to start forming their what we call fan clubs, like their creator DAOs?
Sure. They're already here, right? A good example is I worked on a project with a friend of mine called Solos a number of months back. It's an artist, Jeremiah Palachek. It's based in Prague. He did a line of generative NFTs on his paintings. He's like on Twitch every day, just painting. So he's like interacting with his community. And the users actually earned a governance token for having done an action, which was putting the metadata of their token into Arweave as a permanent hash for the token, and that they receive royalties from their OpenSea sales, and that's what they get to like manage, right? So the users there have the ability to spend money on doing things like putting on exhibitions or hiring somebody to print something. Another great example, another project that I worked on too. I always shill the stuff I'm working on. It's always a shill-a-thon to be on television. Hey mom, how are you? Is the Dope Wars DAO, which is based on Loot. So Loot is a really great idea of sort of like a creator DAO, kind of like really creator at its core, right? Like the NFTs are just ideas, and the creators have to go make it real, right? And people are going and making it real.
By the way, that sounds like a TV show, just so you know, like a live TV show. Like, I'm just giving you the supplies, go build something.
You know what I mean? Like, ideas forming right now. It's just like a series. Like, put a bunch of artists in a house. They got to create an NFT.
Yeah.
Who's ever got the most sales on OpenSea? We get like Tyra Banks to like come in and like put them through like challenges, right? And be like, I don't know, your floor price. It's got to be over 0.1 or you're cut, right? You're out of the house, and then somebody's wheeling out, and they're like, "Yeah, I really thought my like board panda ape crossover would be like a hit, but I guess right, like it's already a thing. It's already happening." But
which network are we gonna get to do that?
It's definitely going to be on the History Channel, since like they don't show shit anymore that has anything to do with history, right? Ever since like Ancient Aliens or whatever that was, it's just like, all right.
Or like,
definitely is like the NFT, like honestly, the History Channel.
I'm in it.
I got to do this.
I'm in it.
I don't know why they haven't done this yet, right?
Yeah. Anyways.
So yeah, so the Dope Wars DAO, right? Like it's like Loot, except for it's based around the old calculator game, Dope Wars, and the community actually built it from scratch. Well, I mean, they actually didn't build it from scratch. They took the loot contracts and just swapped everything out for like stuff like guns and drugs, rather than like mithril armor or the sword of Damocles, right? Like without no events like Dungeons and Dragons style. That's not my scene. So anyway, it's like Dope Wars, and again, they are an NFT. What we did was we swapped out the ERC 721 for the Nouns DAO ERC 721, which is checkpointing built in, so it's compatible with Open Zeppelin Governor right out of the box. So what that means is you can vote directly using your NFT. So all the Dope Wars NFT holders have the ability to vote in on-chain governance. And the governance receives 5% of the sales on OpenSea, which at today is sort of like somewhere between like $400,000 and $500,000, right?
Yeah.
So this community that's like this like fan club of like this calculator game from the 90s, they've come together, they're like building a game, a kind of like universe all together, and they're paying artists. Other creator artists have like applied for grant money to do the pixel art. There's a guy building a Starkware L2 version of the game. in collaboration with like Starknet. They're building out all this crazy stuff, and that's like a creator DAO, right? Like that is just
Mhm.
creators. Like right now, it's just creators creating stuff from stuff that other people created. And again, a lot of creators in that line. But what's kind of amazing and the sort of like unlock that you see here is, you know, if you remember like high school, there was always like some kid was like drawing some manga or like, you know, again, like swords of Damocles on their like hero on a horse.
Was that
Um,
you?
that was definitely not me. I cannot draw at all to save my life. We're gonna do stick figures, which would be a great PFP.
A
Stick
great
figure DAO.
NFT, different
It would be
sticks. Yes.
right there.
Yeah. There you
Um,
go.
but suddenly, these people can start an organization, thousands of people, millions of dollars, doing what they love, doing stuff that other people appreciate. And when you think about like, where are you better off spending your money? Well, I could give my money to some like huge faceless corporation that imports stuff manufactured somewhere far, far away. Or hey, Adam has drawn these really cool orangutans that are look drunk and high most of the time, and I'm into drunk and high orangutans. And oh, by the way, now there's a lot of us into drunken the stone orangutans, and oh, now he's starting a bar, and you can only go to the bar if you have a drunken stone orangutan, and now we're in a really cool club, and we spend
Yeah.
all the Saturday on like a Discord channel. Like
Yeah.
that is such an incredible, powerful idea because that's silly, right? And then another example that I pull out a lot is Pizza DAO, and I always get the mechanics of how they did it wrong because it's kind of crazy. But someone had said, hey, let's raise a bunch of money and on Pizza Day, give away free pizza around the world. Right. And to fund it, they like did NFTs of pizza toppings. This is the part I'm always a little bit fuzzy on. They did like NFTs of like pizza toppings, like pepperoni or something like
Uh-huh.
that. And they like put out just like a spreadsheet being like, oh, sign up if you want to be into it. And they raised like $1 million. And I think here in New York, I think they ended up partnering with Slice. Again, maybe the details wrong.
Uh-huh.
And then they gave away pizza around the world, right? Which again sounds like a pretty ludicrous, dumb idea. Oh, you're just going to waste all your time and energy, kids, and giving pizza around the world. But this NFT DAO, what they actually do when you really think about what happened is they organized individuals globally to raise money to address food insecurity on a global scale, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's just giving pizza away, so it's not actually food insecurity, but that's the concept that's being trialed. And
Gotcha.
they did it at like an efficiency rate that's like a quadrillion million times higher than like the UN, right?
Yeah.
So this loose knit organization was able to do something at an efficiency rate that all those funds that are like asking for your money on TV and showing you pictures of starving people never managed to do, right? And so there you start to see, as we start talking about like how we make magic internet organizations real, you start to see what the power of that might be,
Yeah.
right? You start to see, oh, loot might be, you know, my co-founder, Rafael Solari, he is frequently talking about how, you know, people might start building these collective fan fiction universes, right? Like what if Marvel was actually owned by the people who drew the pictures and wrote the
Right.
stories and went to the movies rather than the people who were just making it for us. I mean,
Right.
I don't want to put Marvel on the spot because actually I love them. They're doing great. I watch everything they put out. But let's say DC and Warner Brothers, right? Like,
Whatever it may be, just like that concept of people who contribute and make the vision, the movie, the TV show reality are co-owners in that. But
exactly.
it's such a different model though, because Web 2 models are traditional like LLC corporate models. Like there's the executive team, and then you get a salary, and maybe you get some stock options for making this
Yeah.
thing a reality. Obviously, now that people have tasted the sugar, there's no going back, you know, and now and anybody who is already in the space is going to expect that when they join a project, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's millions upon millions of people who are so used to the traditional way. How do we get to a much more like mainstream adoption of people understanding
Sure.
that they could not only like contribute and do what they love, but also co-own that process at the same time?
Sure. So I think that is happening. I think that's kind of like invisible hand in the market, just like the evolution of culture, right? Like people, you know, someone told me the other day that 40% of Americans hold crypto, something crazy like that. You know,
Crazy.
you look at like the success of like Robinhood and like meme
Yeah.
stocks, right? Like AMC like last quarter announced on their call that something like 70% or like the majority. I love throwing around round absurd statistics. 70%,
34.369%.
exactly. Like the majority of AMC shareholders was just retail, right?
Yeah.
And the retail probably was folks on Robinhood who probably go to the movies, probably go to AMC. So you had this really weird thing where he was offering they're going to create some sort of shareholder program where if you're an AMC shareholder, you get like a free thing of popcorn and like some other like benefits.
They did that.
That is a DAO,
yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, that's a corporation realizing like innovate or die, right? But like at the same time, the idea is leaching back into the regular world, right? Like Twitter adding your NFTs for your verified like picture on Twitter, right? That's the crypto primitives becoming real in the minds of ordinary people. Oh, would you like to upload this JPEG to Twitter? Sorry, you didn't buy that JPEG, so you can't use that JPEG. Right? Like
identity theft.
Right? But think of the years that like, music corporations were trying to like put some sort of like weird copyright protection into the software to keep us from like playing music. And all of a sudden, like there's no JPEG lobby that's like lobbying Congress that says, hey, people can't be allowed to use those JPEGs. But we have like actually shifted the thought process of like, oh, you don't own that ape, man. That's pretty lame if you're like trying to like pretend like you own that ape, right? And Twitter is like, yeah, we agree. We totally agree. We think that's lame. So now we're gonna let you verify that you really have that ape, right? So I think the mainstream adoption is actually happening. It's happening in a way that maybe people didn't expect. Like I think a lot of people coming out of the Magic Internet Bank and Magic Internet like financial system primitives were thinking we're going to onboard the world with 2,000,000% APY. And what I think they were overlooking is that most people aren't really motivated by money, right? Like people are motivated by money in the sense that they need jobs and they would like a job that pays more than the last job they had. But people aren't motivated by money if you say, take Magic Potion A, mix it with Magic Potion B, do all this weird shit with MetaMask, and if you fuck up, you lose everything you ever owned. And if you're lucky and it was audited and doesn't get hacked, you will have a little bit more of Magic Potion A than when you started. Right? Yeah. That's not really an incentive. But if you tell them, hey, remember how you used to stand in line at like a Supreme drop to like get something and then run home on eBay and like flip it for 3 times the price? Remember how you did that? Well, now you can do that on OpenSea. People are like, yeah, I got it. I was already there earlier this morning, right? Like, so people are onboarded because they also like when you go through Twitter and people are like, OMG, right? Like I just sold my first NFT collection. It all sold out. Like there's this one NFT that somehow always comes up on my thread. It's an animated pixel art of these just like butt cheeks. They're just like crypto butts.
That comes on your thread all the time?
All the time. Maybe I'm following the Crypto Butt Cheeks NFT crew or something like that. They're always just like, yo, you got to get these butt cheeks.
Got to get this ass.
They're like, right? And it sounds crazy, but somebody out there is making a living drawing animated pixel art butt cheeks, which probably sounds crazy to everybody outside on the street, but it's actually really liberating, right? Because that's if that person makes it, right? Like Rack, right? Grammy award winning, like a musician can make it, right? People like Beeple. People were so pissed when Beeple sold all the
I remember that. I remember how angry Clubhouse rooms were.
So angry. They were like, how dare that guy who committed to something that he had no idea what the outcome would be for years and put in his labor and creativity get rewarded for it.
It's dumb.
Right? Meanwhile, like they're like, yeah, I guess Wells Fargo CEO. I actually can't talk about Wells Fargo. I bank there. Some other corporation CEO robbed everybody, got like a suspended 3 months house arrest and Cayman Island sentence, and still got his like bonus payment of $100 million. Right? Nobody really cares about that. They got shit on Beeple, the artist in high school who's like sketching in his notebooks, sitting in the hall. Right? And it's just like of all the people in the world who deserve $60 million, like Beeple's just like so much higher than so many people who are
Yeah.
like ostensibly doing like the real work,
Yeah.
right? So what we're doing is we're unlocking the power of individuals to care about other individuals. And that is a real core to the whole DAO concept, right? Because prior to NFTs, prior to crypto, really, it was really hard for me to appreciate you, Adam, in a way that you could live off of,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I, I think it's been a horrible failing of Ethereum so far that somehow they haven't been able to like transition not OpenSea, OnlyFans, only OpenSea, OnlyFans crossover. That would be amazing. Like how that business model hasn't been able to be disrupted, where people can actually reward other people directly, right? Like obviously, like OnlyFans is like a specific kind of genre, but when you look at like NFTs are kind of like the OnlyFans for everything else, right? Like,
At least at its core, because they enable people to start their OnlyFans accounts.
Yes, yeah. You want to draw sharks, right? You want to draw bored apes. Like if someone had said that bored apes would have made $100 million in like one day because they drew a whole bunch of pictures of stoned apes,
yeah,
right? Like that would have been crazy, but it's just as crazy as anything else, right?
Yeah.
Like, why not, right? Like
Why not?
we enable so many things, like everything in between. The volume OpenSea does, just like it's insane, right? It's just there's a world filled of people being artists, making stuff, and other people liking it, and then connecting directly over the internet. And now, because of DAOs, they can like organize together and do something over the internet, right? Like in Dope Wars DAO, right? Like they all hold this like text NFT, but now they actually can vote and their voice matters and they're part of it, right? So when we talk about like how we're going to like make this mainstream, the option sort of starts to be, when you join a company, you kind of expect that you're getting screwed somehow, right? Like you're definitely not getting paid as much as like the guy at the top, and there's nothing you're ever going to be able to do with that. And like, best case scenario is like you're able to go like earn marginally more money getting screwed by somebody else, right? With DAOs, it's very different. You go in and the community is like, all right, well, what can you do, right? And you can be like, I can offer the community this. The community can either be like, screw off, we don't want you, or they can be like, all right, join. And when you join, you see everything. There isn't like, people are literally saying, hey, we have a vote on how much to pay you, how much should we pay you? Right. And everyone votes on it. Right. And if you can say, hey, this is the value I bring, people are like, okay, because they're all like, well, I'm trying to bring value too. So we should reward it. And there's no pie to take away from someone. Right. Like if you join Facebook, every like, 0.00001% share of Facebook stock you get is like that much less that's available in total percentage to like Zuckerberg. But in DAOs, it's very different, right? Like it's like you can work for, okay, Uniswap and Sushi, maybe not because they are a little bit like a clashing community, but really you can work for all the DAOs at once, right? Like you can work for Compound and Aave and Uniswap all at the same time. And it's not a zero-sum game. It's not like, oh man, Uniswap's got to destroy Compound. No, actually you're working for both of them to go up. And you see people on Twitter, they're like, oh yeah, my comp is going up, or oh yeah, my uni's going up. And it becomes more collaborative. It's just a different way of working. But we need a lot of tools to make it work better.
What's up guys, Adam Levy here. Sorry for the quick pause, but I wanted to give some love to our 3 NFT sponsors that are making this episode a reality. They are Coinvise, POAP, and SocialStack. On Coinvise, you can create a personal or community-owned social token on Ethereum. Coinvise also helps you create incentives through token rewards and bounties, NFT business models, and bot integrations for Discord. Discover more by visiting coinvise.co today. Next up, we have POAP, or short for Proof of Attendance Protocol, who enables a novel way of creating one's life diary. Leveraging NFT technology, POAP facilitates an easy way to mint non-fungible tokens related to meaningful events. It's frequently used in crypto-native communities, and now it's starting to create NFT collectors in the mainstream too. Collect or launch your own POAP today by visiting poap.xyz. Next up, we have Social Stack, a platform for communities, brands, and creators to build mission-driven social token economies. Offering an easy-to-use, non-custodial wallet with a suite of open-source community engagement tools, Social Stack makes it simple to bring your community into Web3 and be a part of creating an open-source, gratitude-driven future for social tokens. Create a free social token wallet, discover mission-driven social token communities, or apply to launch your own token on Social Stack by visiting socialstack.co today. All right, back to the episode.
We'll talk about the tools in a minute, but I want to talk to you about the comparison behind structured, closed organizations and radical transparency through decentralized organizations. What's the downside behind radical transparency?
Yeah, the downside of radical trans. Okay, so in college, I was a political science major, and there, like, I won't be lying my age, but early 2000s. Anarchy was still something that like kids were like, yeah, anarchy, it's cool.
Dude, today, by the way, like all these like Bitcoin conferences, for example, like a lot of the core developers are anarchists, right? They believe that they shouldn't be relied on anybody. They should be their own banks. They should have their own financial system. They should have their own, et cetera. So fuck the government. But anyways, okay.
I think that doesn't rise to true anarchism. But I'm totally convinced it'll never work.
Mm-hmm.
1,000% convinced it'll never work. If you've ever run a Discord room, a Discord chat group, you will 100% convinced anarchy can't work, right? Like, you take any anarchist in the world and be like, all right, run this Discord chat, man. And by the way, there's 10,000 people in it. No. It's never gonna work. Why do you get to pick the channels, man?
Yeah.
Never gonna work.
Yeah.
Who made you a mod?
Yeah.
Oh, because you started this Discord group, you get to choose the mods, right?
Yeah.
Never gonna work. So the radical transparency isn't for every organization. And indeed, there's like a faction in like crypto Twitter that's trying to figure out how to do private voting, which I personally am not yet convinced how well that would work, but are trying to figure out how to do transparency and lack of transparency. Like there's I think in crypto, it's different than like transparency. It's maybe like some things need to happen secretly, but can't be nefarious. It's a very strange balance, and I don't think anyone's actually gotten it just right. And this sort of structure sort of happens sort of like naturally, right? Like there's an asymmetry between some members of a DAO. Like some members of DAO know each other better. They're able to coordinate better. They have a little bit maybe greater access to information than other members of the DAO. Also, maybe they're just more interested in the DAO, right? Sometimes people like to really crap on some DAOs that they have like a number of like small people who make all the decisions, and they kind of discount the fact that maybe that like small group of people actually just pays attention all the time, whereas like everybody else like maybe checks in every now and then, or they show up when there's a big vote and they're like, I hate this idea. It's like, yo, where have you been for 4 weeks? We've been discussing this. But the communities end up kind of deciding what the organization looks like in many ways. So I think that people like to attach the sort of like transparency natively to DAOs. I don't think that those two are actually bonded to one another. I think that they're sort of like two concepts that tend to overlap because we are on a blockchain, so we can generally look in and understand what's happening. That may not always be true in the near future, right? Like, a lot of this sort of like moon math kind of allows you to prove things without knowing exactly what those things are. So we may be seeing more of that, but it's more that I would say something that distinguishes the DAO a bit more is not necessarily like the permissionlessness of the entry and exit, but kind of the permissionlessness of the entry and exit, right? Like, to be a Bored Ape, I mean, I shall forever forgive me for never having bought a Bored Ape. But right, like today, I could join the Bored Ape Club, right? So you could argue that like nobody can stop me from joining the Bored Ape Club, right? Of course, I would have to have a lot more money to join the Bored Ape Club. So you could say that's the barrier to entry. But also, barrier to entry is like a function of time, right? Like the day Bored Apes came out, if I had known and gotten into it and believed in it, right, I could have been a member right away. So yeah. I'm not sure that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that answers my question. I guess I want to get more futuristic now.
Mm-hmm.
When let's say we get to a point where everything is tokenized, okay,
Sure.
and all forms of voting occur on chain to the extent where now we have either a local election or a national election conducted in token format, right, where
Mm-hmm.
everybody can sign onto their computer, cast their vote on tally, for example,
Mm-hmm.
right, for the next president of the United States. Do you see
Love it.
that happening?
Yeah, I do. I do see that happening. I don't see that happening in the next election, unfortunately. But
Right.
Joe Biden, give me a call. We'll hook you up. We'll talk to you. Sell the federal government some great features. I don't imagine that happening anytime soon. Like Magic Internet Society, right? That's still the primitive. That's a bridge too far for most people, right? Like we're working on Magic Internet Organization, but Magic Internet Society is still a little ways away, right? But I think we'll get there, right? Blockchain does enable us to do better forms of running elections. Of course, DAOs run into the same problems that the federal government does, right? It's not the machines that count the ballots that are the problem in the system, right? So that's will we solve that aspect right away? Probably not. I think that we'll probably end up getting to the future in a way that people don't expect, right? Like people thought self-sovereign money was going to revolutionize the world. It is, but not in the way that people thought, right? Like people didn't really care that they could go open a Bitcoin wallet and they would have their own Bitcoin, right? People started to care when the price went up, but most people still didn't care just because the price is going up, right? But the price is going up on something all the time and you're not freaking out. Holy shit, Beyond Meat signs a deal with Burger King. It's going up. You don't really care. Okay, great for the Beyond Meat people, whatever. So that's not really what revolutionized the world. NFTs, I kind of feel like they're revolutionizing the world, right? Like NBA Top Shot, Dapper Labs just did a deal with NFL, right? Like that's mainstream, right? NFL is going to be like, and now for the halftime show, we have, I don't know, CryptoPunk number 8947. Look at those,
look at those pixels.
Look at those pixels go. We're in CryptoPunk 8947, right? Wild, right? But maybe that's how we actually get there, because that's how we're actually getting there right now. So I think when we talk about how we get to voting in your local elections, I think something's going to happen differently before that. I think somehow the politicians are going to raise money with crypto, or the politicians are going to get elected talking about crypto, or crypto is going to solve some sort of major problem, or eventually the Fed is going to be forced to tokenize the dollar, and then it'll just be this weird flip over where it's just suddenly how it is, right? Of course, behind the scenes, there'll just be countless of innovators and entrepreneurs trying to build things to make these things sort of work. But you think of at one point in time, you had to go sign some shit with a notary, right? You're like, oh yeah, I'm doing this. I gotta go find a notary who's open after 5 and get them to notarize something, right? And then all of a sudden, you were using DocuSign for everything. And now people send me contracts. They're like, can you sign this? I'm like, yo, can you send me a DocuSign? Otherwise, deal's off.
Yeah.
I'm not opening this PDF shit, downloading Adobe Acrobat and sign,
Yeah.
So I think the flip is going to happen in a way that we really sort of don't anticipate. But
it's happening right now on a small scale.
It's happening right now.
It's happening right now on a small scale on inter DAO level, when DAOs let's say FWB, they're scaling and growing at a rapid rate, right? Them being a social DAO, now they're opening up different chapters in different cities, right? From what I'm understanding, now I'm getting DMs from members who are running for governance and operations roles, and FWB, and they need to be voted in, and elected as those positions.
Yeah.
So you're seeing these things happen on a very micro level. And I think that's just the only way they happen, right? Right now, the government is still fighting crypto. They're still fighting blockchain. The people in power and that are governing the US, they're anti-crypto. Some may be pro, but the ones that really matter are anti, that are making all the headlines, So starting small, experimenting small, building from there, that's just the way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are you excited about right now in crypto that's happening around the world of governance? And this could be within Tally, but preferably outside of Tally. What are you starting to see that's like, wow, this is super cool. I'm fired up, etc.
I mean, I like it's for me to not say NFTs and DAOs. I mean, that was really exciting right now.
The
Right?
formation of DAOs via non-fungible tokens.
Yes, I think that is, for me, that just like is wild. Right?
And is
like,
that from the point of view of like collector DAOs, like Fingerprint or Pleaser DAO, or like NFT artists who sold like open editions to collectors forming DAOs? Like, how do you define that?
I would say more of that, right? Like, yeah, okay, let's all get together and invest in NFTs together. Sure, cool,
Okay.
got it. I'm gonna go draw some pictures. I'm gonna make like 10,000 iterations of them and sell them, and then we're gonna all vote on like how to spend that money, and maybe like we'll just do like crazy Burning Man out in the forest, and like all take our Bored Apes with us. Wow, that's pretty cool, right? Like the idea that people, and I keep on DMing OpenSea, so I hope they like write me back one day. But like when you combine the fact that you can create an NFT which sort of self-selects for a community that cares, and then you can fund it via the sales between one another, right? Suddenly you have this incredible vehicle, right? If you look at Nouns DAO, which they don't really trade the token and trade nouns on like OpenSea, although I guess they could. They've amassed like, I don't know, like 7,000 ETH, some crazy amount of like ETH, and the sort of like opportunity for them to use that, it's like sky high, right? Like suddenly it's one thing to create a DAO around like, oh, we're going to pool our money and we're going to buy stuff that's going to go up. Great. It's another thing to say like, oh, we're going to start a DAO, we're going to make something that people care about, and the velocity of people caring about it moving in and out of our organization is going to actually power our organization's ability to move forward, right? The idea that you can raise capital via creating artwork is just really fascinating, and it's going to come down to some legal showdown at some point, right? Someone the other day was like, said all NFTs are equity, and I think in some ways they're right. I countered with all NFTs are free speech, which I also think is right? Like there should be no limit in this great United States for me to draw a picture of a stoned ape and sell it to you for $5 million. There's no reason why I should not be allowed to do that. And people are doing that, right? Maybe not apes, punks, but people are doing that. And as we allow right now, the thing that gets me really excited is that we can mix the NFTs with DAOs. So the NFTs represent your membership in this community, and the DAO represents your community's collective ability to take action. That's what gets me really excited, right?
So you're saying like NFTs are like the top funnel layer of issuing membership, right? And then it kind of like comes in like that a little bit.
Yeah.
You're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because you could do it for anything. I'm sure you went to high school. I mean, maybe you didn't. If you didn't,
Maybe I
shame.
didn't.
It's fine.
Maybe
You're
I
doing
did.
good.
Maybe
You're
who
doing great.
knows?
If you went to high school, right, and if you were like in some sort of like sports or track, like in my high school, before we would like do track events or whatever, we would do like the spaghetti dinner. So we would like, a bunch of kids would just cook like a metric ton of spaghetti and like sell it to parents for like $50 a pop,
Wow.
right? To raise enough money to like pay for a bus to like drive the track team to like state, or nationals or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Because school wasn't gonna like pay
Dude,
for that.
spaghetti's
right?
the shit. Let me just say that.
I
But
mean, that's a different topic. That's a different topic. Eminem just opened Mom's Spaghetti.
Mom's Spaghetti in Detroit.
Yeah. Don't get me started. Right? But suddenly you can do that for any idea you wanted, right? Like you could say, hey, let's do a nudist cabin retreat in Saskatchewan, right? And we're gonna all draw pictures of naked people and sell them. And if you own it, you're a member, and you can come take off your clothes, and we'll take the money from the treasury to like build the cabin so we can all hang out here naked every year. Right? And when you're done being naked, you can like sell it on OpenSea, and the proceeds from that go back to the funds because you got to repaint the cabins every year. right?
Dude, you must drop your gig at Tally and start consulting nudist groups about their NFT strategies.
I'm gonna travel the world. I'm traveling. Then I won't need like any of this stuff. It's like too much. Let's go around.
Think about the money you'll save.
Totally. Draw the freaking NFT. Saskatchewan. You know, like summer 2020. Yeah, but you know what's crazy is that would have been so hard to do 2 years ago.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? Open an LLC and like, you know, mail people invites to your naked club in Upper Canada?
Yeah.
Right? And be like, hey, send me $20.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, but it could be anything, right? Like you could feed pizza around the world, right? You could do Bored Apes and then go build a club or bar or whatever cool thing that they're going to try and do now, right? People are trying to NFT buildings, right? So you're going to see, you know, TikTok houses that are like NFT house, right?
Yeah.
Like buy this NFT, get in here, we build something, you know, a percentage of like whatever you build goes back to the house, and now the house can continue on as this like autonomous organization, right? And as we start to wrap DAOs and legal entities, right? Like we can say, oh yeah, this Bored Ape DAO actually owns the building, right? And this building is owned by this corporation, which is represented by the NFT token holders, but that audience could always be changing, right? So suddenly you can create things that you could never have created before. Yeah. And that means there's really not a limit to what people might do with this, right? Yeah. Like clubs, organizations are everywhere you look, right? Parent teachers associations, block associations, like, you know, those like addicted to something or whatever you're trying to get off of an association. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like there's everything, and all of that is so highly frictioned by you know, setting up an LLC, setting up a corporation. You know, one example that I haven't given yet today, which I think is really, really critical about DAOs, is that in the United States and in most places actually, and we don't even think about this. It's kind of like fish don't know they're wet type of thing. If you come up with a cool idea, wherever you are, let's say, you know, you're in Detroit, right? And you have a really nice idea, really good idea. You're like, okay, I'm going to go start a company, start an LLC, you start a C Corp. You're like, all right, I'm going to go hire Adam, right? It's pretty easy to hire you. But what happens in that onboarding hiring process? Well, I mean, if you accept the offer.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to verify your employment eligibility.
Yeah.
Right? I have to ask the federal government, please, Uncle Sam, may I please hire Adam? Right? And maybe, Adam, you are the best person for this job on planet Earth. But Uncle Sam could be like, nope.
Yeah.
Can't hire him, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we checked. This cryptographer, yeah, he's in Somalia. Sucks for you. You can't have them. But, oh, you know, Apple could because they're rich enough to be able to go hire them. Or Facebook could because they're this global organization of billions of dollars. But, oh, you, with your idea wherever you're based, no, you're not allowed to go hire that person. Because we have rules, right? Like, I think rules are important. I'm really pro rules.
Yeah, so. But it's also the point of like being borderless, right? It's also the point of having accruing value and contributing, collaborating, no matter where you are in the world.
Yes, because if I go hire you in Somalia, right, and you are contributing to whatever knowledge work application we're doing, right, what are you actually doing, right? You are, I call you up and say, Adam, hey, you know, you're the best guy in the world for this. Uncle Sam won't let me hire you. I just need you to tell me what to do because you're a consultant. You're the best at this, right? Uncle Sam says, you can't tell me it, right? Like you can't share that information with me. You're forbidden from giving that information to me, and I'm forbidden for compensating for it. And if you start to think of the level of friction that actually is on our economy, and the level of friction that is on, you know, if you start a small business in Detroit, you can't get access to the best talent in the world, right? You could go through a green card lottery where we like dangle citizenship like a, you know, like a piñata over people's heads and be like, hey, if you got lucky, you can get out. But, you know, you can't go hire someone anywhere in the world who's the best. And there's this great term, right? Like, and I bring this up all the time. Talent is evenly distributed, but opportunity is not. And I think DAOs can help distribute opportunity more fairly, right? And that is really, really important because the vast amount of the world, right? Like, we're watching right now is like Taliban says, women can't go to university anymore, right? Pretty soon it'll be like, they can't even hold money or earn money or do anything like that anymore, right? Like, so many parts of the world are just not privy to opportunity. And that is because our existing structures are just so ingrained in us that we just accept them as normal. Of course, you can't hire someone in Somalia, right? Are you crazy? Who cares if they're the smartest mathematician, cryptographer on the earth and absolutely perfect for what you're doing and you pay taxes here in the United States? You can't hire them, period. End of story, right? I talked to someone before who was like, oh, you could PayPal them. And it's just like, maybe you could PayPal them. But then the flip side of that, right? Let's say you do hire someone in Somalia and you do find a way to wire them money. Can you give them equity in your company, right? Can you give them healthcare benefits, right? Suddenly you could build an organization where you say, hey, I'm going to start an idea here in Detroit. And they don't do this yet, but I think it's on the roadmap. And I'm going to use Opolis so that all the people who work for us can get health insurance benefits, right? That travel or that portable with them, right? So that their like dependence on being able to stay alive doesn't depend on me, right? Like their health and benefits come from a collective organization that do collective bargaining on their behalf. And we're going to get decentralized insurance. And then we are going to issue a token so that they can actually have access to the upside of this idea, right? It's incredible. And people don't appreciate how big a shift that is. Because like when we started this company, we have team members outside of the United States. We were trying to figure out, how do we pay them, all this. And it's still an ongoing thing where we're trying to figure out the best thing. But we talked with like these PEO firms, right? They're like, oh yeah, we can help you hire people in other countries. And it's like, okay, this is great, sounds good. They're like, yeah, these people, you don't owe them shit. We lend them to you, we hire them. We take 20% off the top, but you don't owe them anything. You don't have to give them equity. You don't have to give them health insurance. You don't have to do anything. Don't worry. And it's just like, yeah. That's the future. They're like rattling off this list. They're like, we work with these VCs, we work with these companies. This is great. Everybody's doing this. It's like, yeah, that's the shit we're done with, right? Like that's what we're trying to get rid of. That inefficiency. I'm going to pay you 20%, so we have no obligation to like our team members who are helping to build the future.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that's the water. Fish don't know water is wet. It's just so normal that people don't walk around outside noticing that that's just like another layer of inequity. And I think DAOs fix that, frankly.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect place to end off. What a powerful like final statement. Before I let you go, where can we find you? Where can we learn more about yourself, Tally, everything that you guys are up to? Shill, go.
Yeah, so I am always in this room. You can always find me here. But you can find me at Tally. So that's www.withtally.com. You can find us on Twitter, Vote with Tally. We have a link to our Discord as well. You can also always email me, Dennison@withtally.com. Maybe I'll write back. I'll try. I get a lot of spam. It's crypto. But no, seriously, reach out. If you are building a DAO and have questions, just email me directly. I love talking to people about how to build DAOs. We really think the future is right now is currently in like NFT DAOs, right? Like you see a lot of this, what's happening in like DeFi with like legislation. There's a little bit of a chill in the room around that. But NFTs are freedom of speech, right? Like it's your right to draw a picture of a stoned ape and sell it to me for $1 million. Right?
Yeah,
that's your right. So we're really pushing hard to help people build and deploy these DAOs. So if you have any questions, we are here to answer them. And I'm not sure when this is going to go out, but we will be at ETH Lisbon. So we will be at Daoist, LizCon, and ETH Lisbon.
Nice.
So if you are around, we will be walking around. Tally team will be out. Feel free to hit us up. Buy us a drink. Give us a Bored Ape if you love us a lot.
But you got a sick punk. You got a cool punk. I'll give that to you.
Thank you. I got them before they were cool.
Nice. Love it, man. Thank you for being on. I hope to have you guys on again soon. This was a great conversation. You're super knowledgeable, and it's been a pleasure.
My pleasure as well. Thank you so much.